Now, in my eyes, and a lot of people who watch this video eyes, this should be filed under self-defense. Trevor was basically defending himself.
About to make it, blow a bag full of cash, like turn to the side, let me see. Damn, I think we all could agree. You and your friends, I done counted 2 or 3. And you looking even better here with me. We don't need no dinner, you the no boo. Tell me where you're from, girl, is your local? Got a couple dollars we could blow through. Take a couple trips, yeah, I could show you. Jump in my Impala, get the backseat going.
That song you just heard is my new joint. It's called Blow a Bag. You can find it on all streaming platforms. Just search Hollywood, Blow a Bag, add it to your playlist, send it to your friends, all that good stuff. Appreciate you for listening. Now let's get ready to get into what's hot in these blogs. First things first, let's kick it off with Tony Buzbee. I'm sure by now y'all all heard this name. He's the Houston-based lawyer who filed 50-11 civil suits against Diddy, and he put a little too much dip on his chip in the last one that he filed against Jay-Z. We spoke about this a few weeks ago. The girl's claims ended up having a lot of holes, and ultimately that lawsuit was dismissed. Jay-Z has since filed his own lawsuit against Tony Buzbee. Now it's being reported that Tony Buzbee may not be able to practice in the Southern District of New York, which may prove to be problematic for some of the lawsuits that he's filed against Diddy. Megan Cuniff, she's a journalist who's always in the courtroom giving her play-by-plays on a lot of these major cases. She posted on social media, she said his lawsuit against Jay-Z is dismissed and not coming back, and now Tony Buzbee is trying to ensure he can keep litigating his other lawsuits against Diddy because his admissions application in the Southern District of New York was denied. Megan continues, she said, as the order says, Buzbee can seek pro hac vice admission, and that's what he's doing now in the Diddy lawsuits, or trying to at least. Pro hac vice is a Latin phrase for this occasion. It's a legal practice that allows for an attorney to temporarily represent a client in a jurisdiction where they're not licensed to practice. Yikes. Now, Tony Buzbee has responded to these claims that he's barred from practicing in the Southern District of New York, and he posted a certification letter from the Appellate District of the Supreme Court in the state of New York that's basically saying that he has the authority to practice in the state of New York. Tony said, I received many press inquiries and make no effort to respond to most. I prefer rather to just make a general statement one time and let the various entities use that statement as they see fit. He said, over the past week, I've gotten multiple inquiries from friends and colleagues with concern asking why I was barred from practicing law in New York State and offering their assistance. I myself have seen several press agencies, some borderline legitimate, reporting that same trash. Let me be clear, I'm licensed to practice law in New York. I'm in good standing with the bar and have always been. Although I prefer Texas, I'm proud of the work we are doing in New York. Don't believe the clickbait or dramatic headlines. Most of what's reported nowadays is pure bunk. And when I read that, the first thing I thought was it's becoming increasingly clear how much of a slime ball this guy is. There's a difference from being able to practice law in New York State and not being able to practice in the Southern District of New York, which is a federal court, which is where most of these lawsuits are filed at, in the federal court in the Southern District of New York. So Tony Buzbee, from what I could gather, is basically trying to mislead the people and making them think that just because he posted this certification letter that shows that he could practice in New York State, that just voids what the judge just said regarding the Southern District of New York in the federal courts, state versus federal. So we'll see how this plays out. As I mentioned, this may prove to be problematic for the lawsuits he filed against Diddy. We'll see if he applied for this pro hac vice. He's going to have to do that for every single one of them. But hey, let's see how it goes. Let's move on. What else is hot in these blogs? Now, normally I talk about what's hot in the blogs, you know, the topics that everybody's been discussing that many of you may have already heard time and time again. But right now I want to talk to y'all about something that I haven't seen anyone talk about yet. And it involves the injustice of a Black man. 25-year-old Trevor Moses. This happened in Louisiana, where he was basically defending himself in an altercation against a 43-year-old white man. And now he's facing homicide charges behind it. So this all played out outside of a nightclub in Shreveport, where in the video, you see Trevor Moses seemingly arguing with a bunch of women outside of the club. And they're like pointing all in his face, doing all of this craziness. And you see this other dude standing by. I'm not sure if he's with these women or if he's just there, just in the bunch. Trevor's having no interactions with this man. He's just there, seemingly like a bystander. In the footage, you could see them move a little away from the bar, you know, still having this little altercation. The 43-year-old Christopher Temple, while the altercation is going on, decides to stand back and sucker punch Trevor Moses, proceeded to brutally hit him over and over again. At some point during this altercation, Trevor hits Christopher back one good time where he falls and hits his head on the concrete. Long story short, Christopher ended up being transported to the hospital where he ended up losing his life. Trevor Moses was charged with second-degree battery, which now has been upgraded to homicide. It's being reported that the Shreveport Police Department and the Cato Parish District Attorney are working to determine if Trevor is going to face even additional charges. Now, when you watch the video, it's clear as day who started this first. Even amongst the arguing that's going on with Trevor and the ladies, this Christopher Temple dude had no business swinging first. The altercation wasn't even involving him, and yet he felt the need to insert himself. And I think it had to do with the height. I think it had to do with who he seen Trevor to be. In the video, you could see Christopher is much taller than Trevor, and he probably felt, you know what? I'm gonna take him. And he effed around and found out and ultimately ended up losing his life. Now, in my eyes, and a lot of people who watch this video eyes, this should be filed under self-defense. Trevor was basically defending himself. How is it that this 43-year-old grown man who poses a much larger threat than this 25-year-old, because of the height difference alone, can just sucker punch this dude, and because of his actions, he lost his life, but now Trevor is facing an homicide investigation behind it. When you watch this video, at no point is Trevor a threat to Christopher at all. The Shreveport Police Department released a statement that in part reads, they say, unfortunately, the situation was made worse by two individuals, both of which having made poor decisions, and Shreveport Police Department is doing everything they can to come in and clean the mess up. In my opinion, the only person that made the poor decision here was Christopher Temple. Had Christopher never threw that first punch, Trevor would have never had to try to defend himself. Christopher may still be alive today. The representative of Shreveport Police Department that released that statement, he's saying the actions that Trevor took in defending himself should be held to the principle of Graham versus Connor. This is a 1989 Supreme Court ruling that helped shape police procedures for stops that involve the use of force. An officer cannot justify these actions based on a hunch or by showing that they acted in good faith. Instead, they must carefully articulate facts and events that made their use of force objectively reasonable under the circumstances, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because they want to apply this principle now when there's a black man defending himself from a white guy, but they can't seem to find this principle when it comes to police brutality against black men every day. And apparently Caddo Parish, this area where this incident took place at, has a history of racism. According to the DPIC, the Death Penalty Information Center, Caddo Parish used to be known as Bloody Caddo. The parish had the second highest number of lynchings of any county in the nation. The Confederate flag flew in front of the steps of the courthouse until 2011, where a monument to the Confederacy still stands. And inside that courthouse, 80% of defendants sentenced to death between 2010 and 2015 were Black. And no white person has ever been executed for killing a Black person in Cato Parish. So that right there could tell you the environment in which Trevor Moses is going to have to face justice. If you want to see the video, I'm going to post the video on my personal page at I Am Hollywood on Instagram. By the time you're watching this, it'll be up. You can come over to watch the video to see for yourself exactly how this played out. As well, it seems you can't even defend yourself from an unprovoked attack as a Black man. To be Black in America, man, I need justice for Trevor Moses. And that right there is going to conclude what's hot in the blogs for this week.